You sometimes feel like your horse is like ignoring you, or they're being purposely difficult, or they're like not giving you the answer you're looking for, almost always there are two main reasons for this communication breakdown. One is that your volume is wrong, and two is that your clarity is wrong. So we're going to be jumping into those two things today. We're going to talk about how you can tell which one is needed in any given situation, and then we're also going to talk about what you can do to fix that problem. If you're new here, I'm Ruby. I'm a whole horse stewardship trainer, and I've helped horses and humans just like you to have a deeper bond and better relationship for the last 10 years plus. And today I am talking to you from my house. I normally am at the barn, but it's just really, really hot out there. And so instead, I decided to come home and batch a bunch of videos. So you'll see there's going to be a little bit more in this little series that we're going to do today. And I'm super excited to jump in. So we're going to be talking about communication and communication breakdown specifically. So, the vast majority of the time, if you ask your horse for something. So let's use a really common example, like let's say a canter transition, right? So you ask your horse for canter transition and they don't do it. They don't pick it up, or they don't pick up the correct lead, or they don't do it the way that you're asking, and they go to chaos trot. And often our human instinct is to jump right to, well, then my horse must be defiant, or they don't want to, or, there's something like almost like they're working against us somehow. But almost always that's actually not the case. The first thing that could be happening is that that's unavailable to your horse for some reason. So maybe they're not warmed up enough, or maybe there's something going on in their body that's preventing them from picking up the canter. So always make sure you rule out pain or discomfort first. But if you ruled that out, then it's most likely a communication breakdown. And communication breakdowns happen for two reasons. One is you're not being loud enough. And two is that you're not being clear enough. So we're going to talk about those two things. And we'll keep using this example of the canter transition, but this could really apply to any number of different things that you could be doing with your horse. So, okay, if we're talking about the canter transition and you're not being loud enough, a lot of times what I see is, especially because especially women, we've been taught our whole lives that being quiet and subtle and asking very politely makes us a good person. And the reality is our horses just don't think that way. They just see either this is louder, it's quieter, it's bigger, it's small. They're much more pure in their thought about us than we are about other people. So there's no judgment. They're not saying like, gosh, mom's a bully because she asked hard. But what might be happening is, especially if you have a more a type that's more sensitive, they could be just distracted. They're hearing things around them, or they're noticing things in the environment that make it harder for them to focus on you. Or if you have a less sensitive type, they're just like, they just don't hear loud. They don't hear all the aids as much. And so you would just have to be a little bit louder with your aids. And so a lot of times as people, we tend to kind of feel like it's better to give them like the littlest possible light little aid. And while this is true in a perfect situation, sometimes there's just too much happening in the background for your horse to be able to hear that. And so sometimes we need to just start with a little bit of a bigger aid. So one thing that I see a lot of times with this is like when somebody's asking for the canter specifically, they'll go like, please canter, please canter, please canter, please canter. And every time the rider's getting a little more stiff and a little less balanced, and every time the horse is getting a little like jolt, but they're just like, it's not quite enough to actually get the result. And what would be much kinder in that situation would just be to go and canter with the strength you need in that moment to get the aid through, if that makes sense. So instead of these tiny little butterfly kicks, one big clear ask that says, now we're going. And so that's that little bit louder volume. And of course, the more distracted your horse is, the louder your volume of your aids needs to be, or the more dull your horse is in general, the more louder your volume needs to be. Now, slippery slope of this is, especially with a horse that tends to be dull, sometimes we can get too loud all the time. And so what you might notice is if you're talking to somebody and they start talking more quietly and you're already paying attention, now you kind of lean in and you start listening a little bit more carefully. But if we're always yelling at our horse, if our aids are always loud, we never give them the chance to go there, to lean into the quiet aids. And so we can actually accidentally make our dull horse even more dull by always coming in loud. So there is a time and a place to soften and to be more quiet and give them a chance to lean in and to listen to those softer aids. And if they don't do it, then we're right back to being loud enough for them to hear us again. And so we're always kind of toggling between this soft and loud and soft and loud. But the problem comes when we're always in the soft, and then we start to get frustrated or off balance because it wasn't enough to be effective, or when we're always in the loud, and then we make our horse more dull because they're just almost like overexposed to the aid, if that makes sense. They almost become desensitized to it. One quick thing, if I can interrupt here to ask you a little favor. These videos that I'm making, I think are hopefully really helpful. I get a lot of good feedback from you guys in the comment section and other places. But I think that they're just like not that appealing to the YouTube algorithm. The YouTube algorithm looks for things that are like a little bit spicy and a little bit exciting. And this is just not that. It's just meant to be helpful. And so if I could ask you a favor, anytime that you interact with these videos, that kind of nudges the algorithm into realizing that even if the topic might not be something that the algorithm recognizes as important, that people are finding it helpful. So if you're finding this video helpful, I would really appreciate a genuine like, a comment, a subscribe, or if you could just share this video with somebody that you know that would also benefit, because all of those things will help to get this information out to more people, which is my goal. I don't get paid from these videos. My goal is really just to help people and to give you the information that I think can transform your relationship with your horse. So if you would just take a moment to do that, please, and then let's get on with the rest of this video. Okay, so then the second reason that this could be happening is if your horse is not understanding. And so, you know, the big thing that I always like to remind people is horses by nature want to give us what we want. They want to be compliant. They want to help us just naturally in their natural state, unless we've given them a reason to be otherwise. And so with that in mind, if you come from a place of assuming that your horse is wanting to do the right thing and they're still not doing the right thing, maybe they didn't understand. So especially with the canter, we're going to check, did I put my outside leg back a little bit? Am I using enough inside leg to lift that shoulder? Is my weight sitting in my outside seat bone? Am I looking, you know, up and ahead? Is my body relaxed? Something that I do, especially in postpartum, that I just cannot seem to break this habit. When I ask for the canter, I ask for the canter with my whole body, but then my seat locks up. And so my seat is putting on the brakes, even though my legs and my upper body are putting on the gas. And so I've really been working hard to get my seat to stay loose and to lift my horse forward into the canter and to scoop them forward into the canter. And I've been riding canter transitions on repeat, trying to get my body to remember how to ask for that canter transition. But that's something that's really important to check in with yourself about. And so some helpful tools here, if you're like, I feel like I'm asking and my horse is still not giving the right answer, would be to have a trainer watch you and see if they notice something that maybe your timing is a little bit off or your clarity is a little bit off, or also maybe to take a video. I've been taking a lot of video of myself riding recently, and almost all of it just immediately gets deleted. But it is really helpful to be able to watch myself because I can see the little moments when my body's doing something counterproductive that's muddling the communication I'm trying to give my horse. So this can be a really useful tool. What happens a lot of times when our aid is unclear, so let's say we're going to go for the canter transition, let's say you're me and your legs are in the right place and your body is ready to go, and then as soon as you ask for that canter transition, you hunker down and your seat gets tight and your elbows suck in and you sink down and your seat is putting on the brakes even though your leg is being strong. Your horse doesn't pick up the canter because they're unbalanced and you're unbalanced. And so now you're playing catch up. Now you have to figure out how to rebalance yourself and how to find your strength again. And your aids become even less clear. It's kind of a self-fulfilling prophecy a bit, because then your leg starts to shrink as you start to try to be even stronger on your horse. And you start to collapse to the inside, and then your head and neck start to go, and then your elbows start to go, and then before you know it, I see this a lot with beginner riders, right? They ask for the canter and it starts off okay, and then the longer they're asking, their body goes like this, and then the horse can't possibly pick up the canter because they're trying to be strong but they're kind of going to fetal position. And so what we need to do instead, ask once. If you don't get the response, we come back to the balanced trot and we try again. And we're not going to try to hold that that aid unless you're physically able to hold the aid while staying balanced and upright and straight in the saddle, if that makes sense. So the big thing here is the rule of threes. I never want to ask for something more than 3 times, because I just assume if I've asked 3 times and I'm still not getting it, either we need to go back and lay more groundwork so that the horse understands what I'm asking of them, or it's just not available to them that day for some reason. So one really good example of this is we have an older school horse. If he can pick up the left lead, he will always pick up the correct lead, but he has a busted knee. And so some days, even though he comes out looking sound and he looks fine and he's traveling fine, he continually picks up the right lead. If we ask more than 3 times, to pick up the left lead and he doesn't do it, I say it's not available for him today and we're only cantering to the right, and we just trust him and move on with the lesson. If this were a young horse, I would say we need to do some more strengthening exercises at the trot and the walk to build their strength so that the left lead is available to them, because there's something here that's making it too hard for them to pick up the left lead, either in their body or in their mind. And so we need to help build them up to that a little bit more. So there's two big things that you can think about in any situation. This applies to leading, this applies to tying, this applies to backing your horse, this applies to canter transitions, this applies to pirouettes, this applies to anything from the most basic all the way to the most advanced. If you're not getting a result you think you're asking for, there's one of two things happening. You either need to be a little bit louder or you need to be a little bit more clear. And in any situation, you can ask yourself, am I being loud enough? Am I being clear enough? And if the answer to either of those is no, then there you go. That's your fix. I hope that was helpful. And if you want more on this, you can check out some of the videos I have linked below. And until next time, make sure to hug your horse for me.